Hello，各位觀眾大家好啊！又係我許若宇，歡迎大家嚟到我哋嘅節目《英倫故事》。咁我哋今集啦，有我哋嘅主持，另外一位主持阿大成，同埋咧，我哋今日請咗位英國人嘅本地嘅一個嘉賓，叫阿 Tim 嘅。本地嘅一個嘉賓。咁啊，相信好多香港人過到嚟英國之後啦，咁佢哋要煩惱嘅嘢就係要揾工啦，要去揾屋啦，學好啲英文啦。咁但係喺呢個英國生活耐咗之後咧，大家慢慢地就會關注一個問題，就係話我可唔可以融入英國呢個社區咧？英國嘅人會唔會話接納我哋咧？同埋長此落去，咁我會唔會對英國有個歸屬感咧？咁我今日好啦，我哋可以揾到一個本土嘅英國人去回答我哋呢啲嘅問題。咁啊，大成，咁啊問題嘅環節就交俾你好嗎
？Okay, thanks, Vic, the introductions. My first question is why the UK government allows the BNO visa and how UK people think about it.
Yeah, it's quite a difficult question to answer, not working for the British government, but there is very much a sense for older people that Hong Kong was part of Britain. It was part of, you might think of it as British colony or British Empire, or a place that was the jewel in the Orient. So for older people, there was a connection with Hong Kong. With younger people, not such a connection, but there was the Umbrella Revolution in about 2014, I think, is when it happened. And at that time, people in this country started to sort of empathize and connect with the people of Hong Kong. There was a sense that something's gone wrong. Back in 1997, when the handover happened, I think Prince Charles, now King Charles, went to Hong Kong and the flag was lowered. Chris Patten, the governor, everything was happening in 97. There was a sense of, okay, we're losing Hong Kong, but Hong Kong is becoming its own place. It's going to stand and it's going to grow and there's going to be new opportunity and it's going to be within China, and actually Hong Kong is going to help China to become an international country, and that Hong Kong is going to influence and affect China. So this was sort of a view 25 plus years ago, back in 97 when this handover was happening. It was a sad time, but it was a positive time. But then when the Umbrella Revolution happened, those who remembered 97 were very sad. Things have gone wrong somehow.
Mm-hmm.
The hope is sort of being a bit eroded. Is everything going to go right, or is it going to go wrong? What's going to happen? People who are younger, who had no history, no thought about that past, they only connected with the people because they saw people of their own age. So when they saw people on the street demonstrating, they thought, oh, they're like me, they're my age. But otherwise, they didn't really have any connection. And so the average British person only connected a little bit through the news. Obviously, with 2019, there was more commentary that started to happen around the whole question of how did Hong Kong get to where it is? What is going on? And so in the news, there would be bits of information and reference back to the Umbrella Revolution and reference back to 97 and sometimes even reference back to Margaret Thatcher and Deng Xiaoping back in 84 when they signed the original plan of the handover. So there was news for those who were interested to actually learn these sorts of things. But as you know, news moves very fast. Someone who's in the news one day, people forget about. So until it impacts their own life, it makes very little difference. So when the whole BNO thing was suggested, there was a collective sense of, okay, Hong Kong, part of the British Empire, we have a responsibility. what we should do, how we should do it. Well, here's an idea. Is it going to be negative for Britain? No. It's going to be a challenge. It might cause issues, but actually it shouldn't be that negative.
Okay. Tim, let me do some translation in Cantonese. Tim 就話啦，如果英國人點樣睇，點樣英國政府去推出呢個 BNO Visa 咧，其實係如果年長少少嘅英國人咧，佢哋就會有對於成個殖民地嘅歷史啊、英國同埋香港嘅關係，佢哋比較熟悉嘅。咁佢哋會俾，因為佢有呢個理解咧，所以係佢哋會係對香港嘅處境咧，佢又會有多啲嘅同理心啊、同情心喺度啦。比較年輕嗰輩咧，其實唔係咁理解，但係喺2014嗰個雨傘革命咧，佢哋大概都知道香港係發生咩事，因為大家抗爭嘅都係年輕人啦，咁就佢哋都會對於香港啲年輕人啲遭遇咧，佢哋有個同理心，有個理解入邊嘅。所以，但係喺 BNO Visa 正式推出嚟嗰陣時咧，成個英國嘅社會其實對呢樣嘢都係正面嘅個態度。You mean that, Tim? So when the UK government allowed the BNO Visa, can I say that most of the UK people hold a very positive view about this?
Is that too strong?
Too
I
strong,
would say that there wasn't a negative view.
Okay.
So there were some who were positive, and many thought this is the right thing.
Okay.
And a good thing. Whether they were, come on, everybody from Hong Kong, come, slightly different.
Okay.
But it was still a positive kind of, when we think of ourselves as, okay, I'm British, what is the story I tell about myself?
Okay.
As a British person, I should be responsible. I should be, own up for my actions, take responsibility for my past, and take responsibility in the world for what's going on. Well, this is something in the world that's going on that is connected to my British past, that's connected with who we are and how we got here. So in that respect, it builds a positive picture of who we see ourselves as, that we are helping, supporting, enabling. And therefore, because it's portrayed as that, there's a positive response.
Okay, so Tim, so before the BNO Visa was announced, you, just like the other general UK people, you may not know a lot about the Hong Kong or relationship with the Hong Kong. After the BNO Visa was launched, you start to learn about it. Can I say that?
You could say that for general people.
Okay.
When I was a young man, I wanted to go to Hong Kong.
Okay.
I actually wanted to be there in 1997.
Okay.
And when I was younger still, when I was at school, actually there was a young guy in my class who I'm pretty sure was from Hong Kong. So his parents had come probably in the late 60s, sometime when the Cultural Revolution was happening, I think. And so he was born same year as me and, grew up in England. So I knew someone from Hong Kong when I was younger. But the number of people from that background is quite small. Chinese restaurants were developed all across the UK, and most of those were from Hong Kong people. So they were generally Cantonese cuisine. But apart from that, people had no other connection with people from Hong Kong. So I was slightly unusual.
Okay, so you don't let other UK people. You have a little bit connection with the Hong Kong. So so after the 2021, the Hong Kong people come to the UK. I know that you have done lots of the volunteer service to the Hong Kong people. So what have you done to them?
Okay. So the first thing that happened was obviously we had just before 2021 was COVID and lockdown, and people couldn't go out except for 1 hour for exercise. And so people's lives changed massively. So even though 2019 had happened, suddenly all the things that were expected changed. And so people coming out of lockdown, coming out of COVID, were wanting to find ways to connect. And so there was an application that was launched on the mobile phone, which allowed people to connect. And so I tried using it myself. I thought, I'll see, how do I connect with my neighbor who I haven't seen for the last year or so? I haven't had conversations and so on. And through that application, there was this lady from Hong Kong who had a problem. So she goes on her phone and says, help, I can't do this. And so anybody who's using the application could respond. And so there were a couple of us who actually replied to her with some suggestions how to solve her problem. Then she said, thank you. And then she mentioned another problem she had. And she said, I've come from Hong Kong and this is why I don't know these things. So that was my first awareness that actually people have arrived from Hong Kong. Not that it's possible to come, but actually they have come. And when she posted that, someone else on the application said, hello, I'm from Hong Kong too. And then another person said, and I am also. So suddenly in this little chat from one person from Hong Kong needing a little bit of help, there were 3 people from Hong Kong all connecting and starting to talk. So I thought, what would be a simple way to help people from Hong Kong? I will start a group to connect people together through this application. So it's a very simple thing. I don't have to do a lot of work. You know, I have my own job. You know, who am I? I'm nobody. I can just do a little bit. So I started a group, called it Hong Kong English Corner, with the idea, you know, come from Hong Kong, you're in England, you need a bit of space, a corner where you can sort of meet other people from Hong Kong and sort of get help.
So, so there's lots of Hong Kong people seek help from you, but what happened later after you set up the group to help the Hong Kong people, and more? I think there's more and more Hong Kong people come to seek for help from you. So recently, what you done for the Hong Kong people now?
Yeah. So the first thing was I actually said, okay, you've come from Hong Kong. What would you like to know? So rather than just simply helping them with problems with their housing or something like that, because I basically gave links to government websites and places they could go to for that kind of help, because I can't give all of that. But I said within the group, I said, what would you actually like that isn't being provided? And they said, we don't know anything about Birmingham. Tell us about Birmingham.
Okay.
So I thought, well, okay, this is something I can do. I'll organize a little walk, a little tour.
Yeah.
You know, let's learn about Birmingham. So I said, okay, how about this date? Would that work? Would anyone like to join me? And I'll give you a tour of Birmingham. And I'll explain a little bit of the history. And I'll tell you the reasons why Birmingham is great, why you can enjoy living here.
Yeah. I have joined Pastor team the traveling the tour. That is very funny. I walk from the city center around 3 hours. He tell many things of the history of the Birmingham and maybe the property of the building. then to the Hong Kong let them know more about the history of the Birmingham. Also, Bastim, you also open your house, your garden for the Hong Kong. Yeah, can you tell more detail for us?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So after doing the first tour that I did, it was very sad actually because only one turned up. A few people said they would come, but only one came. So I was like, oh, maybe it's not so helpful. But then that one said, oh, that was so good, you should do it again. And so then more came, and then more and more and more.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I asked them, okay, this is good. What else would you like? And they said, oh, we're from Hong Kong. We like barbecue.
Yeah, that's true.
So I said, okay. The group's small at the moment. I've got a garden. Okay, let's have a barbecue in my garden. So people came and we had a barbecue. People enjoyed it. And then we said, okay, what else could we do? Said, oh, there's the Mid-Autumn Festival, the Full Moon Festival.
Full Moon Festival, yeah.
Full Moon Festival. So in my garden, I have an apple tree.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, we'll have another party in my garden, and anyone who comes can pick apples from my apple tree. We'll make some food together, some autumn food, British autumn food, and if you want, you can bring some traditional Hong Kong mooncakes or whatever, and we'll have a party together. And so about 40 people came to that. And then from that, there was then, okay, winter's coming, it's going to get cold. What else would we like to do? And they said, well, we want to organize some groups, we want to connect with each other, but we really should organize a New Year party.
Okay.
So then with some people in the group who had joined, we then organized for a lunar New Year party.
Mm-hmm.
Where we hired a hall, and basically we calculated if we get food from a new Hong Kong restaurant who would do a delivery, and then we'd get some other food as well so that they can get a try of other dishes in Birmingham. We'll have a party, everyone pays towards it, covers the cost of hiring the hall, cost of the food, and we can just have a good time. And so just over 70 people joined that. So, from tour to barbecue to one festival to another festival, group grew. And then from that party, then, when you have 70 people meeting, people start talking, less important. They can start making the connections that they haven't made. And so then other groups were started, like a reading club, a badminton club, a hiking club. So lots of different other groups were started. And people who had come from Hong Kong took ownership of these groups. The only one I'm still really involved with is the hikers group.
Okay. So let me do some translation. 即係阿 Tim 咧，咁就佢就喺 Covid 期間啦，咁就接到一啲香港人嘅求助，咁佢又慢慢發覺原來香港人移民過嚟英國之後有好多個問題嘅喎，咁就佢阿 Tim 就嘗試喺做一啲嘢去幫啲香港人去適應啦。咁譬如話去帶佢哋遊覽市中心啊，講下伯明翰嘅呢個歷史啊，喺屋企開呢個 party 啊，過中秋節啊，個農曆新年咁樣樣。咁就呢位我哋嘅主持大成咧，就係透過呢個導賞團啊，識到導賞團
係啦，同埋佢開放咗個家頓教我哋搞園藝係啦，所以我自己認識教花式添。
所以嗱，老實講，大家聽到我同阿 Tim 啲英文咧，其實都係好一般嘅啫。咁但係點解我哋都願意去做呢個節目擺上網去俾你哋恥笑一下咧？就係因為我覺得咧，就算你英文唔好都好啦，都唔好太過介意去同啲 local 人傾偈。 亦都唔係啦，所以我哋先膽粗粗嘛錄咗一個英文嘅節目。所以咁阿大成咁佢過到英國幫過咁多香港人啦，咁你不如問下佢究竟係佢理解中嘅香港人係究竟係點嘅咧
？OK，佢同埋要補充少少 Pastor Tim 係一個好嘅 organizer 咯，佢開咗好多嘅 group 係啦，即係帶領咗我哋，即係俾我哋知道可以開好多唔同嘅 group、唔同嘅地區啊、唔同嘅 group 咁樣，但我哋可以自己喺個 group 裏面去互相溝通、互相去互助。係啦，咁其實即係我而家有好多嘅工作模式都係嗰陣時都係有啲似，即係話佢都係啲嘅借鏡嘅地方咯。OK，and I change to another topic. Pastor Tim, how do you think about the Hong Kong people? Is there any major difference between Hong Kong people and local people?
Okay, so just as we change the topic, it's sort of there's a connection, as was mentioned. Taixin came on one of the tours, and there was also coming out of that gardening workshop and some other things that were then organized because people had other questions how to do things. So it's done as big groups. But within that, as I was meeting people from Hong Kong, the simple answer is Hong Kong people are the same as local people. There is a difference, or there are actually many differences, but at heart they're the same.
Yeah.
The desires, the pain, the hopes, the fears, they're all the same.
Mm-hmm.
People coming from Hong Kong have a certain fear, have a certain loss of hope, and are looking for a new hope, which people who are living here, they're in a different place. They've got different fears and different hopes. But actually, when people start connecting, start talking, we all love food. We all love to enjoy nature. We all love to get out, to see things, do things. We like to connect with people. We like to feel part of things. So, and in Birmingham in particular, there are a lot of immigrants, a lot of people from different countries. So first generation or second generation in particular. And the expectation is sometime in this decade, there will be more people who are not British ethnicity living in Birmingham than British. So Birmingham as a city is a very multicultural, multilingual, and one of the great things about it is you therefore get lots of different foods. So you get the opportunity to try Hong Kong food. You can have Syrian food, you can have Iranian food, you can have Pakistani food, you can have Italian food, Polish food, Romanian. There's a lot of different foods you can have, Vietnamese. Yeah, I could keep going. Don't have long enough. But what I find and have found is that as we do the tours and do the other questions, actually people are the same.
Okay, because we know how we know the personality of the Hong Kong people, and we know what we are. So the other people always describe the Hong Kong people talk very loud, and when we got something, when you got into trouble, we need to deal with the trouble very, very quick, very soonly. We need to get the response from others very quickly. So I want to ask that, what is your first impression to the Hong Kong people?
Okay, I don't want to upset anyone.
Okay, no problem.
But I'll try to be truthful. One of the things that was kind of interesting was initially the women were leading. It was the women power. That was the first thing. All the people who made the initial contact, tried to connect, was the women.
Woman power.
Women power.
Woman power.
And so the women were learning, they were asking questions, they were trying to find things out. They were the ones going on the app. When an event was happening, they were joining it. when I reflected and thought about it more, I thought, is this because the men are trying to find a job and working, so they don't have time to think about things? Maybe. But the first impression was very much the women are going for it. The women are trying to make something happen. The women are trying to make a home. And the men were kind of coming along because they had to. They were there. So that was a first impression. A later impression is sort of connected with what you said. There was very much a sense of, we've got to try and do everything quickly.
Yes, yeah, of course.
And in many ways, it's a sensation not purely of people of Hong Kong, but also people from London. So, I live in Birmingham. Birmingham is much more laid back than London. In London, you've got to get up and go. You've got to be with it. You've got to be at it, or else you're going to fall behind. Everything's going to go bad. So the pace of life of London is much faster than Birmingham. And so people from Hong Kong felt like, oh, they've come from London. They're much more, we've got to make things happen. And there's almost a sense of, what am I doing with my life? Everything's so slow. So that was an interesting thing to sort of pick up. And it has been mentioned to me by people who are not from Hong Kong that a number of Hong Kong people have got jobs in warehouses, and they are considered keen workers. They want to get up and get at it and get the job done. So in that respect, very positive thing. So yeah.
Okay, let me do some translation. 咁阿 Tim 咧，咁就初頭好客氣嘅，咁我問佢香港人同英國人有咩大嘅分別啊？佢都話大家都係有差唔多嘅目標啊、興趣嗜好啊，其實都冇乜大分別啦。咁之後我就去追問多少少啦，話我哋香港人啊，成日都俾人話講嘢大聲啊，做嘢啊急躁啊咁喎，咁你有冇咁嘅印象啊？佢講嗰下都有少少嘅，似乎咧啲香港嘅女人咧係會比較願意出面去處理呢個問題啦，同埋啲香港人做嘢咧係會可能會比較有效率少少嘅。So I think Tim, your observation is very very correct because we are the men in Hong Kong. We always make the joke that the women in Hong Kong enjoy much more privilege than the men. so sometimes you're correct. So you know that a lot of Hong Kong people they want to move to the UK, but you know that the Hong Kong government don't want the Hong Kong people move out from Hong Kong to the other country because the talent will go to the other country and make the Hong Kong economy to the downturn. So the UK government always frightened the Hong Kong people that if you go to the other country, you will not accept by the UK people or the Canada people. It is true in the UK. So I want to ask that: do you think that the UK is the immigrant-friendly country?
It's quite interesting that the UK has changed quite a lot. When I was born, actually the UK was quite racist.
Okay.
And if you came to the country in the 70s, life was difficult. You would be facing racist abuse. Nowadays, especially in Birmingham, it's hard for me to say in other parts of the country because I don't live there so much. I visited, but on the whole, people are very positive towards immigrants. But there is an issue which is sort of underneath.
Okay.
And that issue is really part of what caused people, or a lot of people in the UK, to vote for Brexit. And it wasn't something against the immigrant themselves, but it was rather the effect of immigrants on the infrastructure. So, for example, schooling,
Okay.
hospital places, GP practices, dentists. There are places in the country where it's difficult to get a place for your child, difficult to get a place to see the doctor. And why? Because immigrants have come to these areas. So the population increased without the infrastructure increasing with it. So that caused a problem. And so people, you know, they like their Polish neighbor, they like their Romanian neighbor, they like their Hong Kong neighbor as a person, they like what they bring, but there is that issue in the background that actually now we have more competition for things which we see as should be ours by right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that can cause issues. Taking another example, you know, the war in Ukraine, everyone is very positive towards helping Ukrainians. And maybe a few 100,000, maybe even 500,000 Ukrainians came to this country, which is great that we are again seeing ourselves in a positive view and we are supporting Ukrainians in this situation, but it puts pressure on the infrastructure.
Oh, I know that. That means that okay, you can continue. No problem.
Ask your question.
So you mean that mostly the UK people worry about only is the resource, not is the I don't like your color or I don't like your race, not such thing like that.
Yeah, that is far less a problem. Much less a problem. As I say, when I was young, that was more of a problem.
Okay, no problem.
But now it's more about resource. Actually, you know, I know people who can't afford their rent, made homeless. So the council is meant to provide housing for them. But the council says, sorry, we don't have any places. They're all used up.
Okay.
So the question is why? Immigrants. And that's why it's a hot topic in government, why Rishi Sunak, you know, as Prime Minister said, we will stop the boats. Not because there's a problem with the individuals, but because of the whole resources question.
So let me do some translation. 其實今次阿 Tim 講佢嗰個論點咧，其實非常之好嘅。即係我問佢啦，究竟係英國會唔會話係咪一個移民友好嘅國家啦？會唔會有啲種族歧視啊？佢話可能70年代嗰陣時就會嚴重嘅，但係依家咧嗰個情況改善咗好多噶啦。但係啲英國人對於移民呢樣嘢點樣睇咧？最主要就係話擔心嗰個資源係會俾啲新移民就真係會一齊去分享嗰陣時，咁佢哋本地人嗰個分享嗰個機會就少咗。咁呢個都好正常啦，因為我哋以前喺香港都經歷過同樣嘅情況啊嘛，呢個單程證嘅問題。Exactly, Tim, the Hong Kong people suffer from the same situation before. When they lived in the Hong Kong, because you know that in Hong Kong there's a lot of the people from the mainland China go into Hong Kong and raise and make the price of the property to raise up, and maybe some job is taken by the people from the mainland China. But however, we also know that the people from the mainland China provide lots of the labor. To do something the local Hong Kong people don't want to do the job. So I know what the feeling that the local people, the UK people have. Yes.
Yeah. I should mention also, obviously when COVID happened, there was a backlash against people who looked Chinese. So it didn't matter whether you were Chinese or Hong Kong or Korean or Vietnamese. If you looked Chinese, there was a bit of a backlash because the sense was, you've got COVID. You're bringing COVID. And, you know, it's the Chinese fault for COVID. And the people have died from COVID. It's Chinese. And so there was a backlash. And I do know people who aren't Chinese, but were thought to be Chinese, who received racist remarks because of this. Now, with the vaccinations in this country and the situation where all the borders have reopened, that backlash has died down a lot. And also the fact that when you say where you're from, you get a change of attitude. But there can still be sometimes an initial negative view simply because you look a bit Chinese.
So that means that so the local people can tell the difference between the Chinese and the Hong Kong people. Can they? Can them?
No.
Okay.
Local people usually struggle to tell the difference with any East Asian.
Okay.
So that's why sometimes you have to say something, and then when you speak, okay, and the attitude changes. But when they just look at you, and for most British people, an East Asian is Chinese because obviously it's the biggest population.
Oh yeah. So let me do some translation. 咁佢就係話啦，咁就經過咗呢個武漢病毒之後啦，咁可能一般嘅民眾啦，可能對於即係中國人啦，可能係會有些少嘅負面嘅印象啦。咁佢又透過外表咧，佢好難分到啲東亞嘅人究竟係嚟自邊個國家喎。所以一定要你自己講俾佢啲英國人知你嚟自邊度，咁佢哋先可能咧先知道究竟你嚟喺邊。So if the Hong Kong people tell the UK people, tell them, oh, I'm from Hong Kong. So the how the UK people behave to the Hong Kong people, to the people come from Hong Kong. How do they behave?
So, for example, I was leading a group, a hiking group, and there were about 40 to 50 Hong Kongers with me, and walking around this lake in the countryside. And a couple of British people are walking towards me, and they speak negatively. They say, it's an invasion. The Chinese are coming. There's an invasion.
Okay.
And so it's quite negative. And I said, they're from Hong Kong. And their faces changed, and they said, turned to the people and said, welcome to Britain. And it was just like a switch of attitude. So one moment it's kind of, wow, there's all these Chinese people coming from. Where have they come from? We're being invaded. So kind of negative to a, oh, you've come from Hong Kong. Welcome to Britain. We're glad you're here.
OK， 咁就阿 Tim 都講咗個故事啦。佢帶一班香港人行山嗰陣時，咁就有啲 local 見到佢哋，其實佢哋都表達一啲比較負面嘅評語啊，就係話咧呢班係中國人嚟嘅，佢哋入侵啊咁樣。但係當阿 Tim 咧同嗰個 local 嘅英國人講翻，唔係，其實呢班係香港人嚟嘅。咁啲 local 都會即刻轉變個態度，就香港人係 welcome 啦。咁其實我好多香港人過到嚟之後咧，其實香港係一個適應力係十分之強嘅族群嚟嘅，即係佢去到英國之後係希望佢哋唔希望自己係匿埋喺異國啊，咁樣自己去圍爐取暖，佢都希望可以貢獻到呢個經濟啦，佢可以融入到呢個社群嘅。咁我哋仲有一個問題咧，咁就大成咁要你問啦，究竟我哋香港人要做啲乜嘢，要準備啲乜嘢先可以融入到英國呢個地方咧
？Okay, first tip, how can Hong Kong newcomer integrate into the UK's community? Will you give us more suggestion?
No, so you know that maybe the generation from the China, they want to stay together, they want to live together. They may not like to communicate with the local people, but the Hong Kong people is different. They are willing to do something to contribute to the UK economy. They are willing to make the contact with the local people, but they don't know how to do this. So maybe the local people, you know that how the UK people think. So maybe you can give some suggestion to the Hong Kong people how we do to integrate to the UK society.
Okay, so there's a few challenges in terms of integration, because to integrate in any way means you are going to have to step forward. You have to make a move of some kind. And So you need to find a space that you feel safe to step into. One of the easy ways is when you get a job. When you're working with people, it gives you the opportunity to have conversations with your co-workers. So if when you're working, you just focus on the work, then you don't actually connect. And if you're just focused on work without connecting with your co-workers, it just isn't positive. But when you start talking with your co-workers, have coffee or tea together, join on a work outing, do things as a group, share what your interests are. So, for example, if you're the right age, you might like football, or you might like some other sport. So you can start talking about that and connecting on that. And the advantage of those sorts of things is the level of English isn't too hard. It's not too high. You can move on from that to the question of, can you join a club, joining a football team, playing football in the park? One of the great advantages in Birmingham is we have a lot of parks. So if you are able to go to the park and you see people playing football, you can ask if you can join. It's easy. Obviously, if it's kids playing and you're an adult, that doesn't work. But if it's adults playing, you can join. I myself have actually joined a group which had East African people playing. So I was the only non-East African. No, it's not quite true. I was one of the only non-East Africans who played football with them. But it's the sport. It's an easy way to connect. So you just go out, find where people are doing things, and you join. A gym is slightly less useful because generally in the gym you focus on your exercise and you don't generally talk to people. If you go to the gym with people you work with or people you've met, that's different because then you start sharing. So, the sports which are team sports, they're ways that you can connect. Another way that you can connect is through community centers like libraries. So you might only think of a library as a place to borrow books. That in itself can be useful. You can borrow children's books so you can improve your English. But also what a lot of libraries run are coffee mornings. So you have the opportunity to go and sit and drink a cup of coffee, and there'll be other people. And this is especially good for older people who aren't into sport. There will be other people who are older coming, drinking coffee, and you can just sit, listen, and when you feel ready, you've maybe been a couple of times, you'll say hello to them, and then you might start talking. So there are community activities like that. Another one which is really simple and easy is church.
Church, yeah.
Yeah, now it is a challenge because, if you go to an English-speaking church, well, everybody speaks English. And it's very hard to concentrate in a foreign language for an hour or two. I know this from my own experience. I went to a service in a Cantonese-speaking church. So everything was done in Cantonese, except for, I think, one song which was in Mandarin. So, I know it can be very difficult. But usually what churches have is times where they have tea and coffee afterwards, and they also arrange things like English classes, and they also do other work which you can join in, volunteer work. And that's actually the other real important area, especially if finances is not too critical for you. If you can volunteer for something. So food banks, often done through churches, is one way. My own church, we have a charity shop. So volunteer at the charity shop. You meet people who are working in the charity shop, but you meet people who are the general public coming into the shop. And it also then improves your English and builds your confidence. because you're doing something without the pressure of work, but at the same time you're working, you're helping, so you're contributing, being positive. So these sorts of areas are all ways you can actually start to connect.
I think one of the obstacles of the Hong Kong people to join the different local activity is that they were about their English not enough, not good enough. So if the local people see that as a new immigrant not good at English, and they speak not very fluent, so will the because the Hong Kong people always worry the local people will laugh at their language, will discriminate them because they are not speaking the very good English. Will this happen in the UK?
It can happen.
It can happen. Yeah.
But normally, again, I'm speaking from Birmingham perspective, so I can't say for the whole country, but in Birmingham, there are so many immigrants for whom English is not their first language. So I know one Hong Kong person works for Land Rover. Land Rover is a well-known brand. It is a British company, but where he is working in the company, there's him from Hong Kong, and there's a German speaker, and a Polish speaker, and I think Romanian, all in his team. So none of them speak English as a first language. So they're not going to laugh at each other not being able to speak English fluently. It also means that you can actually get a freedom in what you do know. The bit you do know you can use and get confident and say, actually, I'm saying this right. I can do this. And that can then help you when you go into other situations. So certain more professional environments, and this is a bigger challenge. For example, if you were let's say a video editor for a media company and you want to work in Birmingham in a similar company, there the expectation of your English is higher than if you're going to work in a factory or a warehouse, or as I say, if you volunteer. Because when you're volunteering, anything you do is good. It's considered a bonus. It's seen as positive. So the fact your English is not perfect, nobody's upset. Nobody's unhappy. It's only when you are receiving good pay, then there's an expectation, well, if you're going to get paid well, you need to know things well. But if you're not getting great pay, then you're not expected to be so good. So the expectation is connected with the output that is expected from you and the requirement from you. So usually there's no issue. And that's again why I say if you find ways to connect with people so that you can become more relaxed in what you do know, and you realize, you know what, being grammatically perfect doesn't matter. Just being able to communicate, get your point across, and being able to connect with people, that's what matters. And when you can do that, then you can build. And then you can get to a place where actually the skill I had in Hong Kong, the job I had in Hong Kong, I can do that now because I've gained confidence and gained fluency.
Let me do some translation. 咁Tim 都好現實地講啦。理論上，如果你英文真係講得差少少啊，或者係講得好奇怪咧，咁你出到去個英國嘅環境入邊，會唔會話俾人笑下，或者人哋會覺得唔耐煩？可能真係會出現咁嘅情況嘅。但係Tim 亦都話啦，其實你可以選擇嘅，咁就你可以一步一步去做。譬如話，如果你譬如話去做一啲 warehouse 嚟做啲工廠咧，可能佢哋英文要求唔係咁高啦。甚至乎你去做一啲義工嘅時候咧，咁由於你係唔收錢噶嘛，咁佢對你嗰個期望亦都唔會話太高，所以咧你英文講得再差咧，可能啲人都會覺得唔係一個問題。咁因為你過到嚟都係你係 嚟服務噶嘛，咁可能咁嘅情況之下，你係比較容易去踏出嚟嘅第一步。咁其實佢嗰個建議咧，我都係具體可行啦，亦都係所有嘅。咁亦都冇俾一個過高、太過虛幻嘅印象俾大家。過到嚟英國之後就一個烏托邦，唔係，都係要大家一步一步走去嘗試嘅。
同埋佢都話提一提，即係我諗到伯明翰特色啲啦，即係多好多唔同嘅有色人種，大家英文都未必咁好嘅，就容易啲，即係我諗嗰個耐性接受程度會大一啲咯，係啦。因為伯明翰都真係幾多唔同族裔嘅朋友喺度，咁佢哋啲即係啲音都係未必咁純正，咁正咁樣咯，係啦。
Okay. So maybe I want to ask you a question because that we all know that the people from the different country with the different culture, they find a way will bring in something to the local people. So what you will think in the long term, what will the Hong Kong people bring to this country? For me, I think one of them is the food. The food. So what do you think the Hong Kong people will bring something to the UK? What do you think? What is it?
Ooh, that's quite a difficult question to answer because you're looking ahead. One thing I found interesting, I was watching a film recently, and there was a second generation Hong Konger. So she's born, I think, 1982, something like that, in this country. And she's now a famous actress. But if you do a web search on her and you read her biography, she didn't write it, someone wrote it about her. They say, this English actress. And it's like, hold on a moment, is she English? Well, she's born in England. But her parents came to this country from Hong Kong.
Yes.
So is she English? Is she a Hong Konger? She's something new. And yet she is having this position as an actress that is being recognized. And so the sort of answer I'm trying to get at is people who are coming as immigrants, while they stay in their mind as immigrants, can only have a limited effect.
Okay.
Something very external like food. Food is a good thing, but it's very external.
Okay, I know.
But when there is more of a, okay, I'm a Hong Konger, but this is now my home, so I'm going to do the best I can for this place. Suddenly there starts to be a fusion. And so the cultural ideas and traditions and histories start to mix with the local traditions and ideas and starts to create something new, which is and it's not what was, and you cannot say it is Hong Kong because it's changed. But at the same time, it is Hong Kong because it's because of Hong Kong it's brought this change. So I sort of see that this is something that people from Hong Kong can bring, that if they remain separate, then it's almost like looking at a film of a foreign film. But when they become part of and connected, then it becomes, actually, this is our film. We have a new film. There's a new thing going on.
Okay. Oh, I know what you mean now. So you mean that the second generation of the new immigrant don't treat themselves as new immigrants, so they can create something. They can do the much more important contribution to the society. What do you mean there?
Yes, what I'm saying is you see it in the second generation more clearly.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be second generation. The first generation can do it depending on what the first generation are thinking when they're here. You sort of mentioned it before, you know, if you stay as a Hong Kong only group without the connections, then there's a loss.
Okay.
But when the Hong Kong group feels confident, I am who I am, I have come here and now this is my home, I am going to bring who I am to my home and make my home something new.
Okay. Well, after I listen to your question, I think you are quite a big thinker because I didn't expect this answer from you. yes, it is very inspiring. Yes. 咁阿 Tim 講啦，佢話如果我哋想為英國帶嚟咩嘅改變或者係貢獻咧，有一個重點嘅就係話，如果我哋永遠都覺得自己一個新移民嘅話咧，我哋係好難令到我哋自己呢個族群喺呢度作到咩好重大嘅貢獻嘅。咁我同佢講咗，可能食物都可以喎。咁阿 Tim 就話啦，食物呢啲係外在嘅嘢啊嘛，咁你係咪真正影響到呢度嘅人嘅生活，或者係可以影響到呢度嘅正經文化咧，就未必一定咯，所以可能要去到第二代啦，先可以睇到嗰個香港人帶嚟嘅改變喺度。我覺得呢個答案咧，俾呢個答案咧係好有洞察力嘅。呢個答案我都初頭冇預計到呢個答案。So I think thank you for your idea, especially your final answer for the final question. I think this is very inspiring. Yes. So anything you want to add on, 大成 any question you want to add?
頭先阿 Tim 咁講，我覺得好緊要嘅，即係呢個你永遠都當自己係外人嘅話，係啊，咁你就好難去關心多啲，即係人哋裏邊嘅事，咁你就好難去改變到啲乜嘢嘅。我覺得呢個都即係佢頭先講嗰個，即係我都同佢之前同佢傾過幾次偈裏邊，佢都有提出過呢啲觀點，係啦。咁香港人即係其中一樣嘢好緊要，都成日都去講嘅就係，即係你除咗保持翻你自己嘅香港人之外，你可以建立多一個身份，你係一個英國人咯。啊，呢個應該尤其係一個英國公民咯，係啦。咁呢個亦都唔係 mutual exclusive， 呢個唔係一個 mutual exclusive 嘅事嚟嘅，即係同你本身亦都係一個香港人。咁有陣時好多時香港嘅朋友就會問緊我，咁我嚟緊嘅時候，我一個英國人定係做一個香港人啊咁樣。咁其實你喺唔同嘅時間、唔同嘅場合裏邊，你可以有唔同嘅身份噶嘛。咁你清楚你嗰個場合係做一個英國人嗰陣時，你個 behave， 咁你就真係要投入翻喺嗰個英國人裏邊，咁你就我覺得咁就你可以真係 contribute 俾佢哋，同埋真係影響到佢哋咯。係啦，咁當然阿 Tim 佢提出過下一代更加緊要啦。咁我對下一代嘅教育啦，咁下一代甚至可能喺度接受教育嘅話，佢可能未來更加容易真係去影響到或者去 contribute 得到，即係英國呢個公民社會啦，係啦。咁但係從另一個角度嘅話，即係我哋而家都同人哋都係啦，最緊要個心態上面又唔好，即我唔係話就係我唔係話叫大家唔再做一個香港人咁樣，大家都係一個香港人，但係同人哋係一個香港人，都同人哋可以標up另外一個身份，做一個英國人，咁同人哋咁嘅話，即係你有一個咁嘅心態就更加容易啲影響得到影響到佢哋咯。譬如我自己喺工作上面都係同人哋都係咁嘅，都係要投入佢哋生活啦，係啦，咁延威佢哋一齊去食下香港嘅嘢，亦都一齊去走入去食下佢哋嘅嘢啊咁樣。咁我諗要共同嘅交流，係啦，咁我呢個都係一個都幾緊要嘅嘢咯，係啦，我覺得呢個係Pastor 都俾幾大啟迪我哋啦。咁譬如佢開放咗自己屋企，係啦，去俾人，咁呢個都係一個好好嘅示範，又話即係俾香港人就話咁大家有咁大個花園咁大個，咁搞多啲家具啦，咁大家可以多啲，同埋個家具就慢慢開始香港人呢度百名好多開始唔係淨係香港人嘅家具啦。係演威一啲隔離左右 local 嘅人嚟我哋屋企嘅家聚啦，因為佢都同人哋可以演威我哋去啦。咁點解我哋唔可以演威另外啲local 人嚟到我哋屋企嘅家聚咧？咁我都知道有啲香港人真係咁樣嘅。咁都對教會嚟講，我自己係一個教徒啦，都幾感恩幾開心嘅就係頭先 Pastor 講，都有啲嘅本身 local 教會聽翻好多嘅肢體去講翻 即係譬如佢哋有啲崇拜或者有啲嘅講道，會間唔中會請一啲廣東話啦，甚至係唱嗰啲詩歌，係特登俾佢哋去唱翻啲廣東話詩歌，同埋完咗之後特登俾一間房，即係俾一啲廣東，即係俾一啲香港人喺嗰度聚翻，去講翻頭先崇拜裏邊嘅內容啊等等嗰啲嘢咁樣，等我哋理解翻咁樣，我覺得都係一個好好嘅共融啦，同埋係啦，咁呢度同埋即係教會 church 都一個幾大嘅地方，係啦，咁可以俾即係好都佢知道啲 church 都幾開放自己嘅地方出嚟去接受唔同嘅族裔去用嘅使用啲地方嘅，咁呢啲都係啲好好嘅機會咯。不過即係最後尾，我諗都頭先 Pastor 都講到句即係你永遠都當自己一個外來者嘅話咧，咁就好難去改變到啲乜咯。咁你永遠都好似外來你進入去嗰種嘅狀態裏邊，你自然就好容易好抽離啊，好外邊仲觀察下先咁樣嗰啲。咁呢個就係一個幾大嘅問，即係我諗呢個對於一個投入喺一個社群或者投入一個社區裏邊係一個幾大嘅障礙咯。其中一個就我哋一定要自己去處理嘅先咯，係啦。
Okay, Tim, Dyson just share about some experience here living in the UK. So now, also it's come to the end now. So, do you have something, some last word to the Hong Kong people, to the viewer? Yes.
I suppose the key thing when I think about why I started helping Hong Kong people is that there's I got a sense that people need confidence. You sort of mentioned it in the last question. People feel like I'm not good enough. But actually, you know, the fact, if you make the effort and you come here, well, that's already a big step. That's taking determination. It's taking, you know, real thinking. It's taking not really passion, but it's taking that you're someone who cares. And therefore, actually, you have, if you've made it to the UK, you have the attributes, the character to succeed. You just need to realize it. You just need to have that confidence built up that you can enjoy life here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's very, very important.
That's the thing I really want people, you know, to have when they come here, and that it's different. Yeah, it's a bit colder, but you know, to be confident that actually you're a person who's already done so much. So, you know, what's a little bit of English? What's a little bit of this and that?
Okay, I know. You know that I am Dyson here to do the video is so what is confident, because after we believe after we perfect this video to the YouTube, there will be some comment said that I am Dyson the English very poor. How can you do the video with the local people using such a poor English? But however, we don't care. Yeah, because no, it's a confident, I think. Yeah. So I stand the lastly we plan for the team to come here to attend our meeting, and I know that team keep doing some volunteer service to the Hong Kong people. Now team is living in the Birmingham, and some of our viewer is living in Birmingham. So if anybody see him on the street, please say the hello to him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fans for your coming, and also fans of this 2 or 3 years you do this for us for the new come Hong Kong fans. Actually.
Yeah. Thank for what you've done for the Hong Kong people. There's lots of encourage to them, I think. Yeah.
Yes, man.
So everybody, we see you next time. 我哋下次再見。
少。
拜拜。
拜拜啊！